awful crunchy noise downriver. And downriver we looked, and there was a collier. It turned out to be a collier called the Charles Parsons. He'd been coming up, and he'd hit the northern battlements with his stem hard on. It hit the abutment so heavily that he pushed all his hose pipes and his steering gear right the way back, about 8 or 10 feet, and he was in absolutely no position to help himself. And he was just wallowing there like a drunken whale in the bridge hole of Tower Pier. We were quick on the job, we were there, and we cleared the hook, got it all ready, and we waited for the magic words to come out over the water, and eventually they came, because after all, a salvage with a ship was something very, very unusual on the London River. And suddenly this lovely sound came over the water, and he said, "Will you take our rope, please? Will we take your rope?" We put the rope on the hook. We towed him down to Church Hole. The poor old skipper made out the account of what had happened. He said his steering gear had gone, and this is how it hit the bridge. And we put our report in, and we got paid out in almost record time. And I remember getting paid out in cash, £95, which in those days was an awful lot of money. And my wife and I, we were going to go to Margate or Broadstairs for our honeymoon, and instead we went to Paris.
All bridges affected the flow of the tidal currents on the river. Tug skipper Bob Harris.
And I remember very, very vividly, because it frightened the life out of me, and I didn't really realise what was happening at the time. I'm coming down very late on the tide from Brentford, and I came to Vauxhall Bridge. Well, normally there at Vauxhall Bridge, the set of tide is hard to the southern, and you hold the tug up to the northern abutment to allow for the tide to take the craft through the bridge safely. But on this occasion, I held them up hard to the northern and nearly carried the bridge away. And I was very concerned about this. I just managed to get these craft through. So when I got home, I visited my father, who I knew had done a lot of driving under oars through that bridge, and I asked him what on earth had happened there. Well, he said, "Don't you know," he said, "there are 3 distinct sets of tide at Vauxhall Bridge." He said, in the first hour or so, he said it's hard to the southern, but then he said as the tide drops, so it tends to come away from the hard shore at Nine Elms, and so the half ebb you get a straight shoot through. But later on, he said, the tide hits that hard shore even harder, and he said you get that set to the northern. That's just a little example of the difficulties that London tugmen had getting their craft home.